This is a biological drug, and the third is an enzyme replacement drug. They all showed and continue to show outstanding promise in the preclinical models, and some of them have moved all the way through non-human primate testing and are starting to move into the clinic.
Fellow Homo sapiens, today we meet the brilliant biochemist Matt Gentry, who shares with us his extensive research into the ultra-rare epilepsy, Lafora disease, funding challenges, his passion for and the motivation that he gets from working with families, and the brilliant work of the Lafora disease charity, Chelsea's Hope. A quick one here, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, because your comment and like will help spread awareness and understanding of the epilepsies around the world.
Matt Gentry, I'm professor and chair of biochemistry, molecular biology at University of Florida College of Medicine. I'm a biochemist and have been working on diseases that impact brain metabolism for the better part of almost 20 years now.
And what led you to focus on brain metabolism? And also, like, I can just say, I imagine lots of lay people think metabolism, how much weight am I going to put on by eating that donut, you know? So how does that relate to an epilepsy?
That's definitely a piece of the metabolic puzzle. Brain metabolism really impacts brain health. And so, you think about the calories that you eat, those calories get turned into energy. The brain, for its size, is a overconsumer of the energy and the caloric intake that we have. And so brain health includes things like your synapses firing appropriately. And if your synapses don't fire appropriately, then you're going to end up with epilepsy. And so do you have the right biomolecule in the right space within a cell in order to control those synapses? And if you don't, then there are deleterious consequences to that.
So tell us about your work on Lafora disease. So you're kind of at our grand finale in the Lafora disease sort of series of the podcast. Tell us about your journey with that.
So yeah, Lafora's disease. So when I was a postdoctoral fellow, this was after getting my PhD at UC San Diego, when I was there for about 5 years, a group at University of Toronto identified the gene that causes Lafora's disease. And this was Bergman-Ashen, and then a group at Madrid and UCLA, Antonio Delgado Escueda and Jose Ceratosa, found the second gene. And so we knew the genetic cause of the disease. But then the problem becomes, okay, that's the genetic cause. What happens at the protein level? You can think of the proteins as kind of the engine of the cell. And if the engine isn't functioning correctly, you've got to figure out what piece of the engine is broken. And so as a postdoc, my job was really to figure out what is going wrong at the cellular level, with the hope of, if we figure that out, how could we fix it? And so I started that as a postdoc. We've had some great insights as both myself as a postdoc, but also as a community. A number of folks from around the world started to talk about collaborating and working together. And then when I started my own lab at University of Kentucky, myself and a patient advocacy group, Chelsea's Hope, really ran with this idea of trying to get everyone from around the world, Spain, Canada, the US, working together on this disease. And that's really what led to breakthroughs.
What breakthroughs would you say there have been over the past 20 years?
The way I think about figuring out a disease is you've got to figure out the gene, and then the protein, what does it do? You generate usually a mouse model or some kind of rodent model to study the disease. You have cellular models of the disease, and then you come up with therapeutics and transfer those then into the clinic. In our field now, we've done everything except for that last one. We've had a pretty amazing stretch of the past 7-ish years. Pre-COVID, we were moving incredibly rapidly. We, as a community, came up with 3 different disease-modifying drugs. These are disease drugs that they don't just treat the symptoms, they actually provide a potential cure for the disease. And so one was a traditional small molecule, that the traditional chemical. The other, an antisense oligonucleotide. This is a biological drug. And the third is an enzyme replacement drug. They all showed and continue to show outstanding promise in the preclinical models, and some of them have moved all the way through non-human primate testing and are starting to move into the clinic. The horrifying part of this story is that these kids, they progress fast, and they, from diagnosis at around age 15 to death around age 25. And so during the COVID period, each of the biotech companies we were working with had to shelve this project. And so we've not seen transition of any of these drugs into the clinic to date, which has been heartbreaking for the whole community.
Yeah, because people were literally dying, I guess, over COVID.
Exactly.
Not because of COVID necessarily, but because of this disease. And so have things picked up again post-COVID?
Yes and no. It's a different landscape. A lot of medium-sized biotech companies are not willing to take forward ultra-rare diseases at this stage. We've heard that repeatedly, and that's not unique to Lafora. I was at a Chan Zuckerberg Initiative meeting a couple weeks ago there were 50 different rare diseases there, groups that were collectively together. And it was a reoccurring theme that the biotech space is really tough right now regarding the rare diseases. We are continue to make progress. One of the things about a rare disease is it gives you insights into a more common disease typically. And so for Lafora's disease, we have made some connection to more common diseases. And we've got some data now showing that the drugs we've developed for Lafora could also benefit more common diseases. And so that's starting to catch the attention of the drug companies.
That's something positive for us anyway.
It is.
And what does keep you going with, such a horrific disease and, with such a struggle to get funding to actually take the research further? What motivates you day to day?
I guess two things. One, just natural curiosity. I think as a scientist, that's just the drive to know and understand is always there. On the funding front, I've been incredibly fortunate and blessed funding-wise. The National Institutes of Health has funded my Lafora research since 2007, I guess. We've received a substantial amount of NIH funding in order to keep the projects going. And then the other piece of motivation is on the family front and interacting with them. So I've co-organized a meeting for about the last 10 years with Chelsea's Hope. And at that meeting, it's a unique setting that brings together basic scientists, the clinicians, the funding agencies show up, the parents, and typically we have 2 to 5 patients as well at the meeting. And so, the focus is on the science and driving that forward. The parents are amazingly sophisticated in terms of understanding the disease and what needs to happen scientifically. And then, the atmosphere at the meeting is one that motivates everybody to do more, better, faster.
I've heard it's like a global family with Lafora disease.
It is, yeah. So I just got back last week from a meeting in Bologna. This was the first one I didn't have to organize, which was fantastic. And the team there in Bologna, Italy, are doing some amazing things. They had, I think, almost 30 patient families represented at the meeting. And they did a really unique a piece where they had an afternoon that was just devoted to families, and then the scientists went off and did their own thing and had a lot of time to be able to just talk about what it's like to have to deal with this diagnosis. There was a family there that they'd gotten the diagnosis 2 weeks previously, and so the raw emotions that they're going through. And then how do you care for these teenagers / young adults?
Well, in my experience, when it comes to often severe diseases of any type, really, it's not just about the person with the diagnosis, the kid, or even the adult, but it's also about the families and what they go through.
Without a doubt, yeah. And that's not something that I appreciated I would say, working on the disease initially. As a scientist, it was about understanding what the patient goes through, developing normally until around age 12 to 15, having an epileptic episode, and then going through this rapid dementia process to where around age 20 to 25, they're essentially like an infant again, unable to talk, unable to walk, speak. And so my focus had always been on that, and then learning some of the families and the siblings that are unaffected, and the guilt, the survivor guilt that they feel.
I was just thinking of that. Like you hear about it in, like, I don't know, accidents that might happen, or plane crashes and stuff like that. But totally, I can understand that happening with Lafora disease as well, because it's all chance, right?
Exactly. And so the Chelsea's Hope, the website, they've got some interviews with siblings now on there talking about that and how they feel, and that's a dimension that I hadn't appreciated until recently.
So would you say that Chelsea's Hope needs more funding to support the patients, as well as the siblings, the mums and dads, and of course the scientists doing the research?
Without a doubt, yeah. I mean, rare disease foundations, it's a struggle, right? I mean, it's the parents, the unaffected siblings that are driving those foundations, and being able to do everything that needs to be done to push the science forward, and to help scientists then advocate with the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S., the EMA in Europe, is also an important aspect. That they one thing that the Chelsea's Hope recently did, which was a big effort, was getting an IDC-10 code, which now allows us to be able to track patients, which as a scientist, that's not something at the forefront of my mind, but will benefit the science that is being done.
Well, honestly, from what you've just said, being involved with the families in Chelsea's Hope, it's lovely to see people such as yourself actually working with us now, rather than almost as complete separate entities, in our own little silos. I think it sounds like we achieve more by coming together, even if it's just for motivation.
Without a doubt. We've been doing this with Chelsea's Hope and Lafora's disease for a decade now. And then, I guess I should mention a financial piece that has helped is the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, Rare as One. For anyone working in a rare disease, I would highly recommend checking out the Rare as One initiative, where they fund patient advocacy groups to help professionalize them and do the job that they need to do. It's been really rewarding to be a part of that group as well.
Thank you very much to Matt. What a wonderfully personal and professional insight into the work being done to improve and save the lives of people affected by what some people say is the worst epilepsy of all, Lafora disease. Do not forget to like, comment and subscribe, and see you next time.